Hey everyone, welcome back to Chatbox Chronicles. Let's chat, connect, and inspire each other on this wonderful journey called life.
Hey Chatbox fam, another episode. We are still in season 1, getting ready to wrap up season 1. It has been a lot of fun so far. We talked about some good topics. We've gone to some awesome places together, highlighted some local areas, businesses, some local people, some local talent, things like that. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yes.
Well, today we're diving deep and getting real about those pesky inner voices that are holding us back.
Yes. We are talking about imposter syndrome, feeling overwhelmed, and that nagging feeling of just not feeling good enough. You know, like if that sounds familiar to you, we're going to try to get into it a little bit more today. Again, we've said this before because we did an episode number 5 called 15 Things That Make Our Life Easier. We were definitely not experts. However, we've both been through a lot, just like everyone has in life. I think that we've gone through it and I like how we've handled it. So anyway, tips that we can provide and just things that we've kind of like worked out. And we're also definitely ready to hear from our listeners if there's anything that you've faced along the way, or if any of this resonates with you and you want to chat about it, this is why we're here. We're like your two little best friends that are here to chat with you every Tuesday about little random topics. And yeah, so today, imposter syndrome, feeling overwhelmed, that nagging feeling of just not being good enough. We're going to go into those topics and just kind of say things that we've used to equip us to like handle those emotions.
We're going to help you rewrite your script and silence your inner critic, because we all have that inner critic. But we're going to, kind of silence that inner critic, and we're going to embrace our awesome today. So
yes. All right. So the first step will be the like not so great committee, like the little people in your head that are kind of jerks.
So first up, let's address you're not the peephole committee in our heads. So we have this like you're not the peephole committee in our heads. Are you constantly second guessing your decisions?
Yes.
Is there a decision that you think about that you think is the right decision, but you may think in your head like, oh no, I may be the peephole if I, do this or make this decision for myself.
Yeah, we're going to share tips on how we turn down the volume on that inner critic and learn how to like trust your gut. Because hey, you're probably doing way better than you think anyway. I think all of us are. I think sometimes we are like the toughest critics on ourselves. You kind of can be a little bit more rude to yourself, and it is important to remember like however you talk to yourself is like how you talk to a friend, because you are your best friend. Like at the end of the day, you need to have your best interests and you need to figure out what you really want to do. That's how you help set up your boundaries, because you really get real with yourself on like what do you actually want to be doing day to day. Because sometimes we can kind of get into this like, you got to get up, you got to be at work, you got to do this. And then you got all these things in your life that maybe you didn't even really want to have in your life. And you're just here and you're kind of like doing the motions. And then you're like kind of overwhelmed and you don't realize like there's things that you can take off your plate because you don't have your boundaries set up right. So anyway, we're going to kind of get more into that and like trusting yourself and identifying that inner critic. And the common like negative self-talk that we all kind of go through.
Yes. So let's talk about those pesky voices that they're in our head and they love to bring us down. Those thoughts that pop up and make us question the abilities that we have.
Yeah, totally. It's like having a little personal critic who's always there to ready to throw shade at you. Bleh. I'm talking about those lines that's like, I'm not good enough, or like everyone else is doing better. I get it a lot while I'm editing this. Like, we're not doing too much with the podcast editing wise. However, like the whole time I'm in it, like, and it does take up a lot of my time just to like go through and even doing like our marketing and stuff, because it is just me and Lelah. We're handling it all right now, our own producers and talent. And like sometimes I can get in my head with it, but you just need to remind yourself of the truth, remind yourself why you're even doing it, and then just go from there and trust yourself and tell that a-hole inside of your head to shush.
Well, there's also the fear of failure as well. Like, am I going to mess this up? So we kind of have that in our head at all times, as that critic kind of telling us like ahead of time, like we don't know, we may not know the outcome, but ahead of time, it's like this voice is telling us, what if you mess up?
Yeah.
What if you mess up?
Or like that all or nothing feeling. Like if we're not like all the way successful, which we kind of also hinted out in our modeling episode, like
then it's a failure.
Yes. Like if we're not going to hit this like major achievement, if we're not going to do it, then why even start? Like why even do it if you're not going to be successful at it? When it's just the inner critic in your head telling you you're not going to be successful, because why wouldn't you be? You know, like you just need to tell yourself it's okay. You doesn't have to be all or nothing, and like sometimes just the learning experience is good enough. You know.
Well, let's not also forget about the tendency to compare ourselves to others. That's a big one. Social media does not help that either. Does it?
No, like exactly.
It really doesn't. It's like everyone else has their life figured out.
Exactly.
So like you look at social media and you may follow people that you think are similar to you in age, or maybe you live in the same area or whatnot, but it looks like they have their life together and you can't figure out why yours isn't together. But it just appears that theirs is, because we're comparing ourselves to something on social media. On social media isn't always the then and now,
right?
You know, and it's not always like reality of people's day-to-day lives and routines.
It's easy to get caught up in that comparison trap and kind of forget about your own progress. Like she was saying, with your age and like people around you, or even sometimes there's people that are younger than you and you kind of feel like, man, if I would have went through that, if I would have known, you know, what I know now, I could have been like they are, and da-da-da. And it's like, no, like your journey is your journey, right? Like, let's calm down, let's slow down, let's not compare. Everyone's success, like we've mentioned before in previous episodes, everyone's version of success is different. Like, there are people that don't even want kids. Like, we're both parents. And like, one of my biggest success, like one of the ways I define it personally is like going to bed, happy family. Like every day, like there's something that my daughter does where I'm like, yay, we're doing something right, you know, like as a parent, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, so the comparison trap, it's easy to fall into for sure. And when you feel yourself maybe like looking at like you're being an a-hole on your own life because you think you need X, Y, and Z because so-and-so has it, just tell that a-hole, hush, like you're good. Like your progress is great. Like remind yourself what all you've accomplished. Like sit back and be like, no. Like I'm here. I've done this. I've overcome this, because we've also had our own personal traumas and like, you know, we've made it really far. Obviously, we still got things that we're learning and growing and doing, and there will be other traumas that happen in life. Like we're only in our 30s, but yeah. They don't see the thumbs up, but yeah. Anyway, it definitely is easy to get caught up in that comparison trap.
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
Sure.
And let's realize too that everybody struggles with self-doubt of some kind at some point in their life. It's normal to have those thoughts.
Yeah.
It's just like how we handle them that makes a difference. So I guess like we're going to be going into, we're talking about these, and we're going to be going into how can we handle it? Because we all have those self-doubts at some point, and we're going to always have self-doubt because we're human. And because we, make mistakes and such like that. But we're going to discuss common negative self-talk patterns. So self-talk patterns, example, like I'm not good enough, or everyone else is better, or I'm going to fail. I mean, it can be with the smallest things. Sometimes we may not think that we do too much negative self-talk, but it can be just little things, like all day long, you could be negatively self-talking yourself and not even realize it.
Yeah.
So.
And also it's important to just like recognize sometimes that like you can't control situations that happen to you. The only thing that you can control is how you react to it. Right. So, you might be going through a bunch of crap and it might feel like one thing after the next. I hate when it gets that way, you're kind of like, man, I feel like I'm treading water. And literally, when I feel that way, I just have to be like, instead of having like a pity party or anything like that, because I've just discovered in my past, because I've fallen prey to a pity party. Yes. It's not really there's no progress that's going to happen with a pity party. There's no progress. Yeah. It is good to feel your emotions, right? Yes. It's good to like, but like when you sit there and you're like, this isn't fair, like, and then you remember like life isn't fair, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, what can I control? If at anything, the bare minimum, it's your perspective, right? Like I can come out of this either knowing how I can communicate to someone, like if you're having a tiffy with someone and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, yada,
Absolutely.
yada. It's just
you saying that. I have a quote here.
Okay.
It says, I heard a therapist say, your feelings are always valid. Your behavior is not. She explained by saying, feel what you feel, but you need to be accountable for what you do as a result of those feelings.
Right.
So it kind of sounded like what you were kind of saying about, we're going to feel what we feel. And that is totally okay. We have feelings. But it's about like how we handle those.
Yeah.
How we project out into the world. How we project out into the world, whatever's going on internally with us. So
yeah. So what do you do when you start that negative self-talk?
Yeah, so we've identified some common negative self-talk patterns and explored the power of positive affirmations.
Yes.
But what do we do when those pesky thoughts creep in?
Yes. So first and foremost, we will recognize that it's okay to have negative thoughts. Everyone experiences them because the key is just not to let them control you.
Yeah, exactly. So when you get those negative thoughts, try to challenge them. Ask yourself if they're based on facts or just assumptions. And this is a very, very big one. I think we learned a lot in our 20s, the difference between facts and assumptions. That can be with relationships, friendships, work life, all kinds of different things. I feel like, what's the quote that's like, assumptions is the...
Makes an A out of you and me?
Yes. That's a good one. But it's very true. It's assumptions can kill anything. So the difference between, facts and assumptions.
Well, XOXO Gossip Girl. Like when you're younger, it's definitely easy to like assume things. Like, oh, I think that's how, gossip starts. And things get messy. Like even, because people get feelings and like someone does something to you, you're going to say something and then so-and-so heard it and then blah, 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 blah. And so like instead of reacting off of the blah, 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 how about let's react off of facts. Like,
yes.
I understand, like, and you can put things in your memory bank of what so-and-so and so-and-so said, but we don't have to react off of it. We don't have to be hurt by it, because that's like another thing. Sometimes people would say something that I heard someone said about me, and now I'm hurt, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, because that contributes to your negative self.
Absolutely. And then you take the hurt and you project it in a negative kind of way. So if we can just decipher the difference between facts and assumptions.
In terms of negative thoughts,
Yes, in terms of negative thoughts.
I think another helpful technique is to practice mindfulness. Focus on your present moment and ground yourself, especially when you feel that, like, racing thoughts. You just start deep breathing. It can help calm those racing thoughts. Sometimes that's hard to remember. It's hard to sometimes remember to just calm down and breathe, especially when you're like seeing red. Yes. Like, because obviously everyone's going to go through something. Inside Out 2 just came out. Everyone's got an anger inside of them.
Anxiety.
And dealing with like all of that and how you react to that and like seeing those things and seeing like be present and practice that mindfulness to like try to just get back in reality, to get back to facts, so you're not reacting on assumptions and listening to the a-hole in your head, basically.
Yes. And remember, it's important to be kind to yourself as well. Treat yourself with the same compassion that you would offer a friend.
Right. Absolutely. Sometimes just acknowledging the negative thought and then letting it go can just be enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like Elsa says.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Let it go. And if you find yourself struggling to manage, negative self-talk on your own, don't hesitate to seek support from like a therapist or a counselor who can provide valuable tools and strategies. I do know that, when we were growing up, it wasn't really what's the word to use? Like
acceptable
to use a therapist, unless something was seriously happening. Like if you used a therapist when we were younger, like there was something wrong.
Right.
Now people use therapists just for their day-to-day life, and that's amazing. So I love that it's more acceptable now. And there's so many more availability and opportunities now for people to get in touch with therapists or counselors.
Right. Even just sometimes Instagram,
Yeah, absolutely.
If you can go in and put like keywords and like you can put like therapy stuff in your keywords and it'll start showing you more of that if you wanted. And I do have a couple of different kinds of accounts. Like one account is definitely, it gears me and it shows me more of that stuff when I'm ready for it, because sometimes you're not ready to see that stuff.
I love that. That's probably why most of mine is Disney.
Yes.
But a lot of mine is also like Enneagram based and things like that. Cause it's like, I think over time it starts learning you. So yeah, if you start looking at like quotes and stuff more often, or like things that are like helpful to you to get you in a good mindset, then yeah, definitely do that for your social media and stuff too. It's better than looking at social media in a negative way and comparing yourself. to others. So
we definitely want to encourage you guys to question the validity of your negative thoughts. And we're going to offer a technique for reframing your negative thoughts. And one of the first ones is the cognitive behavioral therapy technique. That's just like challenging your thoughts. You question the evidence supporting your negative thoughts. Is there any evidence to contradict them? You need to identify any cognitive distortions, recognize your thinking patterns that contribute to any negative self-talk. I also sometimes realize that the people I surround myself with,
how are they talking?
Right.
Yes.
And like the people that you go to for support or advice, if you notice maybe they're more negative.
Do they steer towards the negative, or are they steering towards more like a solution based, or are they just there to listen?
Yeah. Is it like the pity likes to party?
Yes.
Or is it let's get to the bottom of this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and yes, you want your friends to literally see the struggle you're going through sometimes.
Yes.
And they need to be supportive of that and not be like, come on, let's go, positive Polly. But like, if
pray about it.
Yeah. If they're just like feeding into not really helping you, and if you know, like, start realizing that, I think it's definitely just really valuable to pay attention, because sometimes I used to think that there was people in my life who I should have been able to go to for advice. However, it's just very apparent to me, and I've kind of been realizing over the years, but I just had to really get real with myself and like know how I can't go to this person for this. Like, no matter how much it breaks my heart, and I wish that was like our relationship and I could go to them for these things, they're just kind of more negative. They like to complain. They like to look for things to be negative about. So I don't want to do that anymore. Like, I'm over it. I'm done. I just have to tell myself, you can't go talk to that person. But God's good. He's giving me other people. I can go talk to them. We're cool. And at the end of the day, I got my husband. So like,
yeah. And like sometimes, kind of going off of that, sometimes we want somebody or, something to be that person to listen to. But yeah, it's very important to, and you can still love that person and that person can still be your friend. Mm-hmm. There's certain people maybe you should go to and not go to, because you're going to want to go to someone when you are, going through something or venting about something. And it could be the easiest things. It could just be about your day-to-day life that you're venting about. Mm-hmm. But how are they, what are they producing to you? Are they, giving you, some techniques like this, or are they just focusing on the negative, or even are they turning it back on themselves?
Right.
Because I've had a lot of friends in the past like that too. It's like, they say, I hear you, but then they don't hear me, and then it's just reverted back to them.
Yeah,
it's
about
like
something
everything.
that happened 20 years ago, and you're like, yay. All right. Anyway, now,
subject change.
Right now?
So yeah, just replacing those negative thoughts with more balanced ones too. So substitute the negative thoughts with more realistic and helpful alternatives, not the negative. So,
and develop your positive statements that are going to counteract that negative self-talk. You can repeat affirmations regularly. And another thing that I do, another app that I love, is Pinterest. Something that I've researched definitely a lot is affirmations. So they'll just pop up on there, and you don't even have to look that hard. You can just open it and just read one out loud.
And they'll be on your homepage too, so that's nice.
Yes, and I'll read them out loud to my kids. Like, I'm just trying constantly now. Like, I'm trying very hard to be intentional about positive affirmation and getting rid of this a-hole.
Love that.
In me head.
I love that.
Goodbye. And so all of that also helps build your self-confidence, because when you start being rude to yourself, you kind of start being nice to yourself, and then you get confident in yourself, and that helps you have a better quality of life. So,
and you have more of a can do attitude.
Right. Yes.
So some additional techniques that, we're offering as advice, you can do some journaling. Mm-hmm. You can express your thoughts and feelings in writing to kind of gain perspective. I will say, like, everything today is digital. On our phones and digital, but I still love to write. I probably waste way too much paper. But even look, we could be digital, but we want our paper to follow along with. I don't know if it's an old school thing, but like, I am such a writer, and it might sound corny, it might be like, oh my God, I'm not going to sit with myself and do this. But like, if you were to sit with yourself and come up with different like techniques on paper, one little neat thing is you can write in a box. You can write something you want to be known as, like one word, and then kind of revert back to that a month from now, and look inside that box and be like, have I been this person?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and just little things like that. It's like writing it down really puts it into perspective, I think.
Yeah, keeps you in check. And also, like, you can still, if, like, because sometimes I'll write it down with my hands. Sometimes I will. I have note sections in my phone or Google Docs. So I have totally, like, so many different places where I go and, like, just
organize your thoughts.
Yeah. And there is also another app. It's called 6,000 Thoughts. And it's free, and you can go on it and just
put your thoughts, it's just word vomit.
Yes, and it actually will organize your thoughts for you and help you, like, kind of hash out your feelings. And it's a good one. So that's another good app, you guys. You're welcome. Sometimes we're, like, hard on ourselves, and it's tough to build our confidence and self-compassion. But that does, like, self-compassion means being gentle with yourself, especially during tough times. Yeah. And then self-care is just, like, something that you really need to do in order for you to have a good life, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So we can talk about building self-confidence, and the importance of self-compassion and self-care, because they are very important. So let's talk about the foundation of confidence.
Yes.
So self-compassion and self-care. It's like treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you show a friend. Right. Sort of like I had said earlier. A lot of the times, you know, with like different personality types and such, some people are very, I hate to use the word, but it's very true. Some people are very selfish. Mm-hmm. They only think about them. How is this going to affect them? How is their day today? What, you know, but then you have other people on the other side of the spectrum, they are so selfless, and there's wrong in that too. Mm-hmm. Because they're so selfless to the fact that, like, they only think about everybody else and then they forget about themselves.
And that can get you in trouble because you're trying to please so many different people.
Yes.
And then you kind of sometimes piss off a bunch of different kind of people.
You kind of do too. And then you also lose yourself in the way too, because you're not taking care of yourself.
Which honestly, reality TV has helped me realize that about myself, because I used to be really bad at people pleasing, and I knew it about myself. I didn't know how to fix it. It was like something I just felt like I was caught up in, and there was like no escape from. And obviously you can't like record yourself and see how you react in situations. Mm-hmm. However, like sometimes in reality TV, which is why sometimes I like to watch it when I want to do some self-reflecting. I know like they're not 100% me, but there's things that I see, and then like you're like, and you kind of like learn things about yourself, and how to like
absolutely. So I think like it's important for us to have like a foundation for confidence, so that we can exert that confidence out into the world, basically.
Absolutely. Because it's tough to build your self-confidence for sure. So self-compassion is something, and like setting achievable goals and celebrating your small wins and that kind of thing. Like I definitely think that helps build your self-confidence and boost your self-esteem for sure. Because when you set those like achievable goals and you reach them, you're like, yay. And then you start setting more, and maybe you'll start setting harder goals for yourself and achieving them, and that helps build your confidence, you know? And just like you said, I love the idea of the box. Like that was so cute. I'm sorry, I'm like, we're gonna bring that up one more time because you can like in your box also like put some goals in there, and a month from now like check them out and see if you got them, and help build your confidence in yourself.
I like that. So then the self-compassion, and then with self-care is a little bit different. So it's about like replenishing your energy and your well-being within yourself. So it's about taking time for activities that you love that help nourish your body and your soul.
Right. Like me, even like my golfing, like that is something that I love to do, and it kind of gives me some goals to achieve and like things to work on, and out in nature, just helping boost that self-esteem in myself and like build confidence. So like challenge you to find a little hobby that gives you something like that to like look forward to. And setting achievable goals is a fantastic way to build our self-esteem. It's breaking down larger goals into smaller steps so we can celebrate our wins along the way.
Exactly. So small wins, they add up to be big victories. I think a lot of times we don't look at the small wins. We don't recognize those, and we don't celebrate those. So we need to recognize and celebrate our accomplishments, no matter how small they are, because that also boosts your confidence as well.
Right. Yeah. It's important to focus on your strengths and your abilities. So like when you start recognizing your accomplishments, that helps you realize what you can get done. And everyone has unique talents. So by highlighting them to yourself, you'll feel more confident in your capabilities.
And then also going back, let's not forget about the power of positive affirmations. It's also going to help you boost self-esteem, because if you are repeating positive statements about yourself enough, it can help kind of shift your mindset and boost your self-esteem a lot. So
yeah, building self-confidence is a journey. It is definitely not a destination. And like sometimes you feel like you have it all together and then something happens, or I mean, heck, you get your period.
Yeah.
Things like that. Like your mood just fluctuates. And I think like negative self-talk is always going to try to creep in.
it is.
I mean, the devil is real.
It sits in the shadows.
Yeah. And he's always going to try to like bring you down. So yeah, it takes time. It takes effort. It takes like sitting with yourself and recognizing when you're doing that. But the rewards are definitely worth it. Remember that you are capable and deserving of feeling good about yourself. So like we said, seek support. You know, definitely need to talk to your family or friends or a therapist if it gets that way. And just recognize who is good to reach out to. Because, you know, sometimes you'll go to a friend and like we were saying, recognize that they're not good friends. Like, yeah, just kind of see who's in your bunch, you know?
Yeah.
Do you remember a time in your life when an inner critic almost stopped you from doing something?
All the time.
Yeah.
So let me see. Let's talk about something recent then.
Okay.
I grew up doing theater. And I was always on stage. And, you know, I always got really good roles because I was so confident. I would go out there and nothing bothered me. I was never nervous. I knew everyone's lines, including mine. I was the little girl who would get mad at the adults for not knowing their lines.
Aww.
But I haven't done it in so long. I kind of shifted, and if you have been keeping up with this, you know, I kind of shifted into the pageantry and modeling world and kind of steered away from that a little bit. And now my job is basically like theater. But as far as like an actual theater production, have not done that in so long. So a local theater was doing auditions. And I was like, okay, I'm going to put it on my calendar. But my inner critic said, you're not going to go. I'm just putting it in my calendar to make me feel better.
She kind of had an outer critic. She kind of was saying those things out loud. And we were like, nope. Me and our other friend Jana were like,
I said, I put it on my calendar, but I'm not going.
I was like, she is,
but
actually.
You are. So yeah, I had an inner and outer. Yeah, it was just all over critic. Okay. And so I did have a friend who texted me and she said, hey, do you want to audition for this together? And I said, yes, because if you don't go, I'm not going. Like, it was kind of, so then she kind of became accountability for me and vice versa. So we went and, you know, the first audition was good. And then we got a call back. And so that was great. But then like, I think I really messed up my audition. And then, you know, afterwards, it was just like that inner critic was just like, you can't do that. Why did you even try? Like, you know, like you are far beyond that. People are way more talented than you. Like all these things. And I'm like, I had to smother that inner critic so quick because I was like, you know what? It was so great to step out of my comfort zone. So great to do, you know, something unique and fun that I haven't done. Like just that feeling of like nervousness and exhilaration, you know, of not knowing what's going to happen, you know, kind of thing. So
probably opened up some more dreams too. Like
yeah, sure. And I was like, you know what? And also going back to what I said earlier, it did give me that can-do attitude. Yeah. Once I pushed that inner critic down, I was like, no, you can do it. You may not get a role, but you can do hard things. Yes. And it was a hard thing. And so I ended up being proud of myself instead of being, you know, instead of criticizing myself when it was easier to criticize myself. So yeah,
because you could have even like went home and like cried, you know, or been like,
I didn't. I just ate Taco Bell instead and watched trash TV. So
I love it. That's awesome. Yay.
All right. So then I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What are some positive affirmations that have helped you silence the negative ones?
Okay. One of the easiest, most simple things is like, you know, you can do it. And like we've been told that, especially if you were raised in church, like, you know, you can do all things through Christ. And sometimes like I get really overwhelmed and I just think it's too much and I'm like, oh, you just can't do this. But then I'm like, nope, you can do it. Even if it's like you can go to someone for support, you can break it down into smaller things to like digest it easier. Like you can figure this out. That's one of my biggest things is like you'll figure it out. Like I always, like an old coworker pointed out one time, she was like, you always say you're going to figure it out. And I was like, I guess it's just been my whole life is just trying to figure it out. And
I've always done it.
I'm going to figure it out. Like you can figure it out.
Yes. And I guess it's like, like you said, like no matter how big or even how small, there's always something in our wheelhouse. There's always something in our power that can help ourselves. You know, you get around people sometimes who, you know, they act like there's absolutely nothing that they can do for their situation. Right. We all have some kind of power for our situations, for our problems, for our bad days or what, there's always, and not saying that there's always a solution right at hand, but there's always something within your wheelhouse or your power to do something about it, whether it's changing your mindset, like you said, starting with the small things, like whatever. There's always something in our power,
right?
To control our atmosphere. So.
Right. Another thing I say to myself that's a positive affirmation for me is like, I am blessed and highly favored, because sometimes it's like, you feel like, well, it won't happen for me, or, those kind of like negative things is like, I mean, I try so hard, but it just never works out for me. Yeah. And you're like, goodbye, sir. I actually, like, I am blessed and highly favored. God is working everything out for my good. I have seen things maybe not work out exactly how I thought they were going to work out, but they work out for my good. Like, for, like, a really, like, things are way better than I ever imagined. Like, would I ever thought I was where I'd be out today? No. Especially, like, with an amazing husband and 2, like, fucking cute ass kids, like, and like, I don't know, there's just so many times where I'm just like, I just pause, and like, yeah, we get into like tips, or like, there's things, or the world, like, things can be overwhelming, like politics, everything's crazy, and I'll just be like, you know what, let me just ground myself, and everything's gonna work out, and at the end of the day, I know God's got me, so like, we're good. And that's just something I try really hard, like, why would God not want this to work out for me? Like, I know it's all going to work out. And again, I know I've mentioned it a couple of times. Also, I have this like one big thing. Oh, are you okay?
I need to take my medicine. I'm about to cry. I'm just like listening, and I'm just like, yes, amen. Yes, and amen.
I mean, I almost got like emotional for like a half second.
Yeah, you're looking like, and I'm like trying not to cry. I'm like, oh, I'm never emotional, but like, yeah, I need to go get that medication. Yeah, I love that. I love to say like I'm highly favored too, and then also like he has never failed me.
Yeah.
So why would he now? You know what I mean? Like, and I kind of like picture God like in a humorous way sometimes, because like I'm pretty humorous, and I'm like, he made me from his image.
Yeah.
And so I think of God sometimes like in a humorous way. Like he's looking down at me and he's like, girl, I ain't ever failed you, so like, why you think I'm gonna fail you now?
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah, why are you stressing? And then he's just sitting up there just like chilling. And I'm just like over here like a maniac, stressed out about something. He's like, girl, don't be stressed about that. So yeah.
Yeah. Like a big thing that I'm like really looking for right now. Like, and we touched on like, I think on the first episode, and I'm just like, I can't wait for us to be able to talk about it. And like every once in a while I'll get like the critic in my head that's like, you just need like, it might, like, it's not gonna work, and you're gonna look like a dummy, and like blah blah blah. But I know, like, I'm blessed and highly favored, it's gonna work out. Like, I'm so freaking excited. And I think all of this has like just been a really big building on my faith personally. Like growing up, I feel like I also was told like, have faith, like it'll all work out. But
that's all we were told.
But like, yeah, but in the same breath, it was like, it's not going to ever work out for you. Like, why would you do that? Like, I didn't pursue photography because it was like, you need to have like a business degree, which I understand all of that, because I do need a business degree to like know how to run a business. Like, all of that was like beneficial to me, but I felt like I was not like I was told you can't do photography, you have to go like support someone else's business, like I couldn't have my own thing.
Yeah.
It was like, anyway, it was hard for me to have faith. It was like, and that was like how I felt with worrying as well.
Yeah.
Every time I would go to like a service and the sermon was on worrying, like I remember there was this distinct time I was like driving like to go model somewhere, tire blew, I'm an hour away from my house, I'm an hour away from the dealership because I had a little Mini Cooper and it had to only be taken to this one spot. And anyway, it was this crazy thing. This tow company had to come get it, and this was like a Saturday during the day. I didn't know where my car was at all. Sunday I go to church, and the preacher's like, and like I'm worried because I don't know if like my car just got towed, like what's going on. And the preacher's like, you shouldn't worry. And I'm like, how am I not supposed to be worried right now? Like I'm like freaking out mentally the whole time while he's telling me I shouldn't be freaking out.
Just wait in church.
Yeah, and my parents are also like freaking out on me. Like they're not exercising and showing me how to have faith in this moment. Like they're like getting on to me, like, and like, how dare I have a tire blow, like all these things. And like, I'm just like freaking out. And anyway, like those kind of things growing up, it was very confusing for me. So anyway, I feel like now I'm finally like, you know what? Like my parents did their best, and I'm going to try to do better, and I'm going to like do my best and like try to show Roxanne really how to have that faith and like not be scared, which has made me like, sometimes I wonder if it's like lazy parenting, like trying to instill fear in your kids because you're like, hey, don't do that. Like just because you don't want them to. So then you try to scare them from doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that happened to me a lot, and I'm trying really hard not to do that to Roxanne. I'm not trying to give her like
you
false
also don't really
things.
learn on your own either.
Yeah,
you know
which she is becoming very fearless, and like she is like, but it's fine. I'm like, you know what, it's fine. I would rather deal with this now because I think in the long run it's going to work out. But anyway, all right. So that was like really good on our first little topic, and then like, boosting self-esteem. Do you want to get into when you get into the imposter syndrome, when you're just sitting there and you're like, who am I? Like, who TF am I? Imposter syndrome. If you have ever felt like a fraud, even when you're successful, like, I mean, we've all been there.
Yeah, we have all been there. So we'll chat about like the signs of imposter syndrome, what that means, and then like some strategies as well to kind of overcome it. Because you deserve to feel confident and capable.
Yes. Okay. So imposter syndrome. It's a term you might have heard thrown around, but what exactly is it?
Imposter syndrome is a pesky feeling of being a fraud or a fake even when you have achieved a success. It's like this little voice inside of your head that's telling you you don't deserve your accomplishments and that you're going to be exposed basically as a fake, or you're not going to live up to certain expectations or whatnot. So you kind of like have this syndrome that imposters you basically.
Exactly. People with imposter syndrome often attribute their successes to luck or timing or external factors rather than their own abilities, because they don't want to take accountability. They're like, no, I wasn't the one doing this. All right, cool.
Yes, and it's important to remember that imposter syndrome doesn't discriminate against anyone. It can literally affect anybody, regardless of even their level of success or experience. So.
Fun fact, Lewis Capaldi, you know, that singer, he really struggles with imposter syndrome. I don't know if you watched the like documentary that came out, but he goes into it. He's so talented. And like when he was going through all that, like I was crying listening to it because I mean, my whole life, like it was hard to just be proud of yourself. We've talked about this a lot. Like it's hard to be proud of yourself, to be like, I've done this, because there's always that inner critic in your head or someone around, especially when you're younger, trying to tell you like, no, you don't deserve this. No, you're not the best. No, there's look at this person's Instagram. Look, they got way more things, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, that's not right. Like you got to take those thoughts captive, tell them that's not the truth, and realize your worth. Go back to your box. Look at your box.
Go back to your box.
Realize what is important to you. What's your character? Because also in this day and age, people do things all the time behind your back or whatever. Like, you know, you can do, social media can be used like a double-edged sword. It's good and bad. And at the end of the day, the only thing you can control, again, is your character.
That's right.
How you handle things.
That's right.
So at the end of the day, just know, get down and realize who the F you really are, and don't sit there and question yourself. That's the biggest thing, because questioning yourself, like, it's okay to like be realistic, but don't not value yourself and not give yourself credit.
Yes. Don't back down from that.
Yes.
So we'll talk about some common signs of imposter syndrome, which, you know, we'll discuss about like feeling inadequate with what you're doing, the self-doubt, and then fears that you have as well.
Imposter syndrome can show up in a lot of ways. One common sign is feeling inadequate. Like you're not qualified or you're not capable enough to be handling the responsibilities that you have, which can even happen as a mom. You know, like you can feel
as a mom.
Very inadequate. Like you don't know what you're doing. You're there and you're like, how does she do this? Like,
because going back to it, there's also so many critics. Outside critic, not just inner critics, but like the inner critic typically comes from outside critics when it comes to being a mom too. So like you have to really decipher which voices you want to listen to, kind of like we talked about earlier. Like, are they a lot of negative ones? Are they positive ones? Are they realistic ones? Like, you kind of have to throw in the mix what it is that you want to hear, because that's what's going to resonate inside of you. And also self-doubt. That's a big one too. Which is constantly questioning your abilities and second guessing the decisions that you're making, and it can be really exhausting.
Right, yeah. When you're just like not confident in yourself and you're just going back and forth.
Yeah.
And then there's that fear of being exposed also as a fraud, because you think someone's going to be like, well, look, I've even had someone try to say like, oh, she uses AI to do this. And I'm like, no. But you know what? I'm not. And hey, if I do want to go and use AI as a tool, it is there. It is and I'm smart enough to know how to use it to my advantage and not give it like, you know, details that you shouldn't be giving AI, things like that. Anyway.
AI is one of those tools that you use when you already have, you know, your creativity. And you just take like your creativity and what's in your thoughts in your brain, and AI just kind of helps you piece that together.
Right. Sometimes it's kind of like helping like do a quick rough draft and like edit it through, and then like editing, you come through, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, and sometimes people, like, if I don't know 100% what I'm doing, even when we began podcasting, I didn't know what I was doing, and I
still don't.
Didn't really even want to tell people we're doing podcasting, because I don't want people to be like, oh, you don't know what you're doing. And it's like, yeah, I really don't, but I'm going to just keep putting one foot in front of the other.
And soon you'll be walking through the door.
And I'll be on your phone, on this box on your phone. But yeah, it's just trying to silence that and not worry about, quote unquote, being exposed as a fraud. If you know, what I tell my daughter all the time, because it's really cute lately, she's been watching a lot of America's Got Talent and talking about going on stage and blah, blah, blah. And then she'll be like, oh, I'm nervous, or like, I don't know if I can do it. And I'll say, if you do it with your heart, you know, you're going to win regardless. So like at the end of the day, don't be worried about being exposed as a fraud or imposter syndrome, or if you feel like someone's gonna be like, oh, I've seen so-and-so do that actually, or whatever. We're all unique. We're all ourselves. So like, just tap into your uniqueness. And honestly, if you are being like inspired by someone else to do something, give them credit if you want. Like if that's going to help you feel a little bit more, because it's nice to give credit, and it's okay to be like, yeah, I saw this from them and then I twisted it and did my own thing or whatever. Like if you want to, like that was something like when I was younger, like I feel like people sometimes wouldn't give me credit for things that I did. And it would just be like, it was hard for me to like give myself credit too, because I would be like, well, so-and-so did do that or whatever, you know, and that's just you getting into that, like the a-hole that we were kicking to the curb.
That's right. And yeah, I guess like here for me recently within the past few years was, you know, I took over an already successful company. So I was very blessed to take one over instead of an already established company, instead of having to build one from the ground up. But with that came the imposter syndrome, you know, of like, can you handle this? Can you live up to what has been done in the past? You know, the person who had owned before knows everyone in the community, you know, kind of thing. But then as I started building, you know, my own clientele, my own connections and things like that, I was actually, I was invited to an owner's retreat a couple years, or like a year and a half ago. And I couldn't believe I was invited. Of course, that imposter syndrome set in. And it's like, girl, you do not need to go. Like you are not, because this is, you know, you got to think these are people in the same industry as me from all over the States. And some of them have very big, very good companies. And so, you know, I was terrified to go, but I did it. I kicked that inner critic to the side and I went, and it changed so much for me in a positive way. And then we just held our second one just a few weeks ago, just got back from it. And it's so nice because it's like, even if some of these companies have, let's say, been in business longer than you have, or have certain things that you don't, or make more money than you do, or are successful in certain areas, they all have that little bit of imposter syndrome. And even though we had all been together before, but hadn't seen each other in a while, we were still all nervous going back in. It was like starting back over a bit. You know, it was after listening to everybody, and like we all talk daily. And it's like whenever we do get on there and talk about certain things, we realize that every single one of us, regardless how large or small our companies are, we're all going through like the same things. But before we had this community, we had a lot of imposter syndrome. And like we still might every once in a while, but it's really good and refreshing to have that community. That's why it's important to have a certain community for certain things. Right. You know, and so like for my business, I have a certain community for that now, where I can go to about all business aspects. I can go to about clients. I can go to about performers. I can go to about like really anything, because we're kind of all in it together. Because if not, then imposter syndrome will take over, and it'll be like, you're not good enough. You're not good enough to do this because you're just a nobody in comparison to.
Yeah. And also, like, being different characters, I'm sure that probably feels weird. Like, you're a nobody like, trying to be this Disney character, blah, blah, blah. Right. I'm sure, you have a lot that you've overcome.
A lot of, like, expectations.
Yeah. And so another way to help combat all of that is overflowing your own cup. We've kind of, like, talked about that a little bit in our 15 things on how to, like, take care of yourself. But, like, definitely one of the things to help combat that is overflowing your own cup and paying attention to yourself.
Yeah, so we want to overflow our cup, not be overwhelmed. So, like, have you been overwhelmed before?
Yes.
Because we hear you, so have we. Life can get really, really messy, and sometimes it feels like there's just way too much on your plate.
Right. We're going to talk about a few practical ways right now to eliminate that overwhelm, prioritize our self-care, and stop drowning in to-do lists.
Yes.
Because, I mean, it's good to have them, and mine are recurring, but, you know, don't drown in it. Don't put too much on your plate. Figure out how to delegate.
Yeah, and if you want to reference back to our episode 5, we talked about 15 things that make our life better / easier. So you can always go back and re-listen / rewatch that for some more tips as well.
Right. So we're going to start off by defining overwhelm. Overwhelm is that feeling of being buried under a mountain of tasks, responsibilities, or even emotions. Because you can be definitely overwhelmed by your emotions. It's like there's just not enough time in the day to do everything that you need to do.
Yeah, it's like it kind of feels like you're drowning. And it's like no matter how hard you try, you just can't catch your breath.
Right, yeah. Common causes could be work, stresses with relationship, stresses with, like, different things going on in your personal life. I mean, everyone gets sick. Everyone has family members that get sick or dogs or cats or, you know, things. Right. There's just, like, so many things that can cause stressors in your life and cause you to get a little overwhelmed. Like when, like we were kind of mentioning a little earlier in this episode, like one thing after the next, you're like what in the heck? And
like bullets hitting you.
Yeah. So at that point, it's important to start recognizing your boundaries, set limits, and learn how to say no. Like, and
say it louder. Say it louder.
No.
Yes.
And like what you want to, like, what do you truly want to do? And does that mean you include other people's opinions and try to make everyone happy involved? You know, it is good to, like, when I'm planning something and I know a lot of people are going to be involved, I do try to, I'm like, hey, let's start the group text. Let's see what people, like, you know, what do people care about? And if you don't speak up now, forever hold your peace, for real. Because, like, that's how I feel. Like, that I'm done people pleasing. So we've got it all figured out and we show up and that's not what you want to do. And now I'm like, freaking out. I'm not doing that anymore. We've already discussed, like, this is the plan, right? And everyone's on the same page. I'm definitely someone that's like, my boundary is like making sure that everyone's on the same page. And we're going to discuss it. And I don't care if you get mad at me about discussing it like 12 times. Like, we're going to make sure we're all on the same page. And then if something doesn't go, I'm like, hey, remember that page I thought we were on? Like, anyway.
Well, there's also, like, the difference in, you know, wanting everyone to be happy and everyone to be heard, and then also being a people pleaser. There's just that difference because I have to do the same thing with my job. I'm a business owner and I have about 40 contractors. And so they are all completely different, completely personalities, different talking techniques, different leadership skills, different talents, period. And so you get us all in a room together, or we're all working together every single weekend. There's going to be things that people that they do like and they don't like. And then I'm kind of like that central focus of trying to keep everyone happy, but also, you know, not just, you know, letting everyone do this or that or whatnot. There's just that difference between just having those really solid boundaries.
Right.
So you can get, like, overwhelmed, which can, like, feeling like you're constantly stressed out. Right. You're constantly anxious. You're constantly burnt out. It's this feeling of being, like, pulled into a million different directions at once. And that's such an easy thing to get trapped into.
Right.
Is that mindset. We talked about mindset earlier. If you get trapped into this mindset of, I can't be a good friend. I can't be I can't be good to myself.
I'm busy.
Because I'm so busy.
Yeah.
You know, I'm one of the busiest people I know.
I know.
I just am. Like,
I mean, same. And I like, realize that, like, all my friends are busy.
Very in their own kind of way.
Yes.
Legitimately so busy. Like, I could lay out all these tasks that I have to do all day, but, like, you'd be asleep by the time I got to task number 3. But I'm not going to use that as my excuse to not be good to myself or to, you know, the people in in my surroundings.
Right.
So.
We're not going to let that overwhelm us. We're not going to let...
No overwhelming. Because it will overwhelm you so quick if you let it, and then you're drowning.
Right. You feel like you're constantly playing catch up, like you're always behind. I know, like, I don't always have it together. And like I said, Lelah, earlier today when I showed up, I was like, you know, like I'll leave something here, or I accidentally brought something home the last time. Like I brought home a coffee. And I don't even know how it happened.
I don't even know
like,
what's gone.
I have it all together, and like I have all my things, but then sometimes, you know, like I have my daughter with me, obviously. So like when I'm getting her in the car or whatever, something might happen. We might forget it. No one's perfect, and that's something that I also like have to recognize myself and like give that grace to myself and also to my husband, because like sometimes I'm like, you know, I was trusting you to get this thing and you didn't get it. Like,
we'll like dump it on them.
Yeah, and then it's like, okay, he's a human too,
and they're just chilling.
Yeah,
they're just chilling, man. You're overwhelmed over here, and life is good for them because they don't do this typically as much as we do.
Right,
us women. Hear us out. Us women love to try to combat everything, and we love to just let things overwhelm us. And even though our husbands are living under the same roof as us, they're just chilling.
Right.
So let's be a little bit more chilling.
And it can lead to, like, if you don't just chill, this can lead to fatigue, headaches, difficulty sleeping.
Yes.
I get bad migraines. And honestly, when I was pregnant, like my migraines like come and go. And when I was pregnant, that was the worst that they got for me last year, because it was like as soon as I started doing too much, because we were moving and just so many different things were happening. I was like having to prep for my job to be gone for 4 months. And I mean, all my effort was for nothing. But anyway,
it wasn't not for nothing.
I was like, you know, going through a bunch of different stressors, and my literal, like, I get the migraines where my vision, I go blind. I literally can't see anything. And I have to sit, I mean, it makes me throw up. I have to lay down and like cover my eyes, have the like compression thing, and literally lay there and take a nap. Well, I would put on like Christian music and lay there to know that I'm maybe doze off for a second. But yeah, my body would make me take a freaking break. And because if you don't, and you let yourself continue being stressed and just like
physically
thinking, because sometimes you kind of get caught up and you think that you're being productive with this stressfulness and like overwhelmed,
that you're handling it okay or good enough.
Yeah, or like I just have all these things. I'm trying to do all these things,
but your body's like
yeah, and you try to like spin it as maybe positive because you're not being completely real with yourself, that you just have too many things on your plate and you need to figure out your boundaries. But yeah, some people like they think that they work better being overwhelmed, but your body's going to end up shutting down. It is not good for you. You need to take care of yourself and put those boundaries in place.
Yeah, I constantly say, I do not have time to be sick.
Right.
So then the backside of that is, okay, if I do not have time to be sick, then I need to make sure I don't get sick.
Right.
So, like I said, I'm one of the busiest people I know. And if I wanted to, I could let all of that succumb me. I could let all of that, like, no, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. And so sometimes I will catch myself, like when Wilder's like, hey, mommy, will you play this with me real quick? And I'm like, hold on, I've got to XYZ. I will not even say that out loud. Like, I'll have to catch myself and be like, yes, I will stop for a second. And I won't say that to him, but in my brain, I'm like, I will stop for a second. And I'm like, of course.
Right.
Let me come play this with you for a second. Because I could let that, like, overcome me.
Right.
But, I also think, like, you know, those tasks are still going to be there. Right. Trust me, they're going to be there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we got to take breaks.
Right.
We got to, like, do something that's refreshing to kind of, like.
And that's putting your boundary on. And, like, because your boundary is, like, hey, every once in a while, I know that my son is a priority to me, so I'm going to take a break and I'm going to push, pause, and go play with my kid. And that's good. And
I will say, sometimes it's okay to do both. Like, for instance, if I realize that I have just been doing, phone stuff all day or computer stuff all day with my job, and I feel just so like overwhelmed and stuck, I will be like, hey, Wilder, pack up, we're going to go to the neighborhood pool. And I may work a little bit here and there while I'm out there, but like I feel better because I am doing something more peaceful and more relaxing, instead of just like overwhelmed, cooped up in my office, feeling like I can never get to the end of the tasks.
Right. Yeah. It's like we can still work. Thankfully, in 2024, we can work from home or wherever our computers take us.
And not everyone has that luxury if you're in an office, but I still believe that there's still ways.
Right.
Like whenever I did work in an office, you know, sometimes like I'll be like, okay, I need to, every 30 minutes, I need to get up and I need to take a lap. You know what I mean? I need to walk around the office, say hello to everyone, you know, that would make me feel better because I'm a very personable person. I like to see faces. I like to talk face to face. So I would get up, do a lap, go say hey to everyone kind of thing, get a little exercise in, sit back down, do some work. 30 minutes later, do the same thing. Sometimes you can just step outside for a minute. Like whatever job, whatever occupation you have, there is something for everyone to like stop, set some boundaries for yourself. Right. Take that workload off just for a second. Yeah. You just got to find out what works for you.
Right. People pleasing definitely can lead to burnout, and it's important to focus on what we truly want and expect from others. And remember, it's okay to disappoint others. Yeah. Our happiness and well-being is important too.
Yeah. So let's talk about time management because I am very passionate about this.
Yeah,
I am. So some tips for prioritizing tasks and managing time effectively. Because overwhelm can often stem from feeling like you have too much to do and not enough time.
Right.
We've all heard that before. I have too much to do and not enough time. I think a lot of us even say it out loud constantly. If you find yourself saying that out loud constantly, find something else to say. Because that's putting such a negative in, like, I've got too much to do and not enough time, too much to do, not enough time. We all have the same time.
Exactly. And I hate also when they're like, well, Beyonce has the same amount of time. Okay, and then she does have all of her staff. However, she figured out what staff she needed in place so that she could do that, True. So it's like you sit down and you need to figure out what your boundaries.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
One of the first steps is to prioritize your tasks, make a list and categorize them based on the urgency and your importance. That helps you like sit down, like, yes, we have 1,000 things we need to do, but what do we really need to do today? And what can be put off to tomorrow? And like sometimes I'll get a calendar out and I'll be like, this needs to happen by this date. Like me and my husband we have a storage unit. We need it cleaned up by this date. I'm going to put it on here and like, we have to have it done by this date. Cause sometimes him and I will forget we even have a storage unit and we'll just go golf. And I was like, we kept forgetting about it because I kept pushing off because it was like, that wasn't a priority at all. But anyway, time management, like figuring that out, sitting down, prioritizing your tasks, like what do you need to get done, and figuring out how you can delegate and all that stuff.
Yeah. So like focusing on completing the most important tasks first.
Yeah.
I do the same thing. I use my note section quite a lot in my phone or like I had said earlier, I like to write things down. So I'll go in my office and I'm writing down I have all these inquiries and all these people I've got to email back and forth with and all this stuff. And I'm like, but what event is priority? I'm not saying that like anyone's event is priority over another, but like say like, we have, there's just a certain urgency. Yeah, there's a certain urgency to certain events and things like that. And so, I'll go and I'll be like, okay, I need to focus on this. Once I'm done with that, exit out. I got to ship something off, put that kind of at the bottom of the list because they're not going to be able to pick it up till tomorrow anyways.
Right.
So it's just kind of like prioritizing those tasks, like making a list, categorize items based on those and say no to less important things.
Yeah.
You can add that to tomorrow or the next day or whatever. There's always tomorrow.
Right. And then you can research different time management techniques. One of them is I don't really know exactly how to say it, but it's
Pomodoro technique?
Yes. It's where you work in focused bursts with short breaks in between, kind of like how you were discussing. That's exactly what that was, like getting up and walking around every 30 minutes or so, which, I mean, if you have a kid potty training, that works, because if you work from home with your kid potty training, you can set every 30-minute break and you just go take a trip break. And, well, that's speaking from experience, but because you gotta manage that time, and potty training is a big time suck, y'all. Yeah. But like every once in a while, like there's phases of your life, so there's phases of time where you're gonna be like managing it differently. Like you can't think this has always worked for me, so I'm gonna keep doing it. If it's not working for you right now, it's like why isn't this still working? Well, hey, we all evolve and we all grow, so let's like try to figure out how we can properly manage our time. And sometimes that is working in focused short bursts, which like for me, my husband, like he'll have like demos because we both work from home. So like, I'll be like, hey, what time are all your demos for the day? And I kind of and I know when my son naps and like things like that. So then I know when I can like kind of focus on like certain break times, for myself. Cause I'm like, I don't need to just be constantly working on the house, constantly working on my phone, constantly working like with the kids, blah, 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 and not giving myself any time to break. So I always try to like focus on like giving myself those little short bursts of breaks in between as well.
Yeah. I like that. And then also like avoiding multitasking.
Yeah.
And I know that's very, very hard, especially for a woman, because we're made to multitask. We're like, this. And if you're like me or like Elyse, you're not only a wife, and a mother, but you have an entire household to take care of. You have an entire business to take care of. Then you have these things on the side. You know, like I've got this podcasting, you know, that we're doing that it's a lot of fun, but it takes a lot of work.
Right.
And then also, you know, I've got umbrella branches, you know, for my business. We've got a wig styling section, like working with those clients. I've got event clients. I've got birthday party clients. I'm managing an owner support page.
Yeah.
I'm managing all these other different pages or whatever. And so
that, like
a VIP page.
Yeah, you're a friend. You're
and then
daughter.
Yeah,
like your
friend, daughter, all these things. And so I'm like, oh, I got to call my grandparents because they live in Florida and I got to check in on them.
Yeah.
So, you know, the multitasking, though, can really get us overwhelmed.
It's like, I can do something with my baby on my hip.
Yeah, exactly.
At certain points, you need to realize if you're doing too many things at once.
Yes, that's what it is. So focus on one task at a time for better productivity. And I think it'll be better in the long run.
Right. And
talking to myself, too. So.
Yeah. Like, remember that it's about finding what works best for you.
Yeah.
Experiment with different techniques and find a system that helps you stay organized and productive. Because, like, it's not one shoe fits all. And like I've said, there's different phases of my life where I've done things differently. Things have worked for me differently, that kind of way. But it's just figure out and experiment and work on how you can make yourself not feel overwhelmed. Like she said, if you see yourself saying, like, I'm busy, I'm overwhelmed, I got time, calm down. Do yourself a favor. Listen to us.
Yeah, and I always say, like, don't do more than two things at once. And when I say that, it's not like two different things with my hands. It's two different things with different senses. So if I'm doing one thing with my hands, I may do only one other thing with my ears. And so, for instance, like if I'm doing something with my hands, like if I'm responding to emails or, you know, what have you, I'm working with my hands. And then I will only use one other sense besides sight, because I'm looking at the, and that will be listening, and I'll listen to like a podcast or something that I can kind of like focus in on, but like also do my work. But if I'm doing that and getting up to fold laundry, and I'm just going to get like, so that's when you get overwhelmed. Right. That's when you start drowning. So maybe start small and just do the whole, let me focus on only two things, not two things with my hands. It's got to be different.
Right.
Because I think that kind of helps too.
Right, exactly. Minimizing distractions.
Yes, turn off your notifications.
Yeah.
Mine are turned off. My husband, he made me turn my text message notifications back on recently. And I don't like it. I'll probably turn them back off. I don't like it when I hear a ding. Because it automatically puts me in like
you gotta talk to it.
Gotta answer that, you know, kind of thing. It creates that sense of urgency when there doesn't need to be that sense of urgency.
Amen.
So find a quiet workspace. I have my office in my home. And it's like one of those where, yes, I work from home, but I have got to have a designated area. I could work in any room, but like I prefer my office. I can shut the doors, it's quiet, but I'm also up front. But like that's my workspace.
Right.
And then again, just avoid your multitasking. So
yeah,
we know you can multitask.
Yeah.
And I feel like we think like, ooh, if I can multitask, I'm a superhero. But like also it like sets you back. I think,
right. So and also like it's good to create a calming environment so that you can sit down and maybe not multitask. Like I can't really sit down if there's like a lot to do in my house, like laundry or whatever. Like I do try to stay on top of it, but throughout the day, if I need to like focus on, say, putting together promos for like photography or whatever, I can go to my safe spot outside and go work there. Yeah. Yes. And give me a calm, like my calming environment is, like I've said, I like to be out in nature. So we recently got a new fan, so it's all cute and cool out there. And I like to give myself a little calming space. All right. And now next we're going to talk about the scarcity dragon.
Ooh.
Do you ever feel like there's just never enough time, money, and success?
Yes.
Let's slay that scarcity dragon together.
All right. So we're going to discuss the mentality of abundance and how to shift your focus to appreciate what you have, not what you lack.
Yes. Rewriting the story.
Rewrite the story. So throughout this episode, we're going to share some personal stories too and some practical tips. So we can rewrite the story that you tell yourself.
Yes, it's time to ditch your limiting beliefs and embody your amazing potential. So is there a time where you have felt kind of overwhelmed because you didn't feel like you had enough time, money, or even success? Like,
yeah, absolutely. I feel like that a lot in my business because you got to think like, my business is the kind of business to where money's not coming in unless we get a booking.
Right.
We're service based. And so it's not like a company that is constantly overturning money, or even if it's a slow period, you're still overturning some kind of profit. Don't have work until we're booked, until we are, so yeah, it's very hard sometimes with that. And then also, so then the flip side of that is time. We do like a lot of weekend work. There's only so many days in a weekend.
Right.
And so when we're booked, we're booked. But then that also limits there can be no additional income, but then we also don't have the availability.
Right.
So it's like a very like fine line. So yeah, I feel like that a lot actually, within my business. Specifically.
And that happens obviously with me as well. And so like to tell myself, like to rewrite that with myself, I'm like, no, like we were saying, God has got us blessed. We're highly favored. Like there's always like, we're going to figure out, this is going, like if you give yourself positive affirmations and you don't sit there and try to focus on like, no, like this isn't going to work out, blah, blah, blah. If you sit down and you are realistic with yourself, even like if you do have a business plan or anything, like sit down and like try to be realistic with numbers, like try to show yourself the truth. Like show yourself the things that you can control, the things that we've been talking about this whole episode. Just like sit down, try not to let time and money and other people's success or where you think you should be right now. Have goals, make sure you try to achieve those goals, but just don't let that hold you back. Like even with photography, like there's some times where like I want different like, gear or whatever that's like maybe more like outside of my budget at the moment. So it's like I'll give myself that goal and a good realistic smart time frame, and I'll give myself like, this is what you're going to do, this is like different promos you can run, this is things that you can like where we can be, and give yourself realistic things, like actually like hold on to the truth and not assumptions, and stay in that scarcity dragon, because you always can get caught up in like what if. But if you sit down and you try to be real and like actually like fine tooth and like figure out what you're doing, like hone in on your skills, I think that's how you slay that dragon.
Yeah. And another thing, like for our small business owners, because I feel like we all kind of feel this right now, there's a scarcity in bookings, there's a scarcity in funds, there's a scarcity in all these things. And so, but of course we take that more personally, when that imposter syndrome comes in and we think like, oh, well, it must be me, I must not be the greatest business owner, people must not like my products, they must not like my services, they must not think it's worth it. Or worth it. But I have to kind of remind myself too, like especially right now, I'm like, the economy is struggling, and that's for everyone, like everyone is struggling right now, small businesses especially, unfortunately. So hang in there, don't let that imposter syndrome take over, because there are greater factors than like what is inside of your head.
Right. It's time to ditch your limiting beliefs, and embrace your amazing potential for sure.
All right, so we're going to talk about Achievement Addiction Anonymous. AAA. So attention, achievement addicts, perfectionists, and control freaks. This one's for you.
Yes, we're going to talk about the pressure to constantly achieve, the importance of finding balance and inner peace. You can't be successful if you're like stressed out. But like sometimes when you are being successful, you are stressed out. And that's okay. It's okay to recognize if you're being stressed, but you need to like kind of calm down and find that balance and know that you don't have to be perfect. Beautiful things are never perfect. And I'm like I was also like, I was valedictorian. I was like achieving, like perfectionism is how it felt. Like you had to be everything and you wanted to be a trophy wife and like all those things because I was engaged when I was young and yada yada. And I was like definitely an achievement addict. Yeah. And it's nice sometimes to just know you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to put that pressure on yourself. Have a balance. It is good to have a standard. Like, it's like, I'm not going to go do something and half-ass it,
Right.
I'm not going to like, if I don't, I'm going to, reach for the moon and land among the stars, that kind of thing, like I'm not going to not try my absolute best and like see where it gets me. But if it's not perfect, or like maybe I didn't like even this podcast, like sometimes like I'll a couple of ums and everything they slip through.
Lots
and I'm like
ums.
la la la, yeah, I'm like but it's okay, like that just makes it more real. It's fine. And hey, if you love the ums, there's even more on Patreon. So
there's a lot I'm kidding.
All right,
so also can I say Yes, going back to like the perfectionist, control freaks, things like that. Same thing. We talked about this in an episode before. I was a straight A student, doing all the good things. And I knew one thing that I knew I was going to do was graduate college.
Right.
I did not. And the thing about it is people have this stipulation like you have to or you're not successful.
Right.
And so people will say, oh, where did you go to school? And then they end up with, well, where did you get your degree? What'd you get? Graduated. Yeah, exactly. And so then I, back in the day, it used to actually, I would be so nervous to answer that question because I'm like,
you're going to feel like a fraud?
I'm going to feel like a fraud. Imposter syndrome would come in. And now after discovering myself and things like that and putting these practices that we're saying for real into play, now I'm like, no, I didn't finish college, but you know what? I have a business and I'm a business owner and I'm rocking it.
Right.
And guess what? I didn't need a degree for that. So it's just about your mindset and how you talk to yourself and
what limiting beliefs you put on yourself.
Your beliefs that you put on yourself. Yeah. Very good way to put it. Yeah. So
and it's, find that balance. Find your inner peace. Take care of yourself.
Drink your water.
Or your coffee. There's a lot. Hopefully this kind of resonated with you. We definitely would love to hear if there's any techniques that you implement. Let's chat about it.
Yeah.
And if there's anything that we said that resonate with you, definitely let's chat about it.
Put it in the chat box. Thank you.
Yes. We definitely enjoyed this journey. Season 1 is kind of coming to a close and we obviously didn't really know exactly what we were doing. We was putting one foot in front of the other. I love how the topics that have come out so far. I'm pretty excited what's going to happen. We're definitely planning and if you're a Patreon subscriber in the inner circle, you'll definitely see all that planning and stuff kind of more. But this has been fun.
And if you're not a subscriber yet, go ahead and click that subscribe button.
Yes.
Or don't. I don't know.
I know. You don't have to.
You don't have to, but you should.
And if you haven't told your friends about us, you don't have to.
You don't have to, but you should. Don't let that imposter syndrome kick in. Don't let that self-critic stop you from telling your friends about our podcast. No, but really, if you are a Patreon subscriber or you want to subscribe now, we would love to hear from you. Like Elyse said about your tips or anything else that you kind of want to add to this episde. That would be a lot of fun. So thank you for joining us on this journey of self-discovery. May we continue to grow and to implement these things into our personal life so that it can be better and happier and healthier.
Yes. So until next time, Chatbox fam, remember, you are worthy, you are capable, and you are enough. Now go out there and conquer your world. Let me grab my coffee before we close out for real. It's been
cold,
fun.
So I'm not drinking it, but I will. Cheers.
But guys, it's been fun like always. We'll catch you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.